was darkness. It was just dark.
Yeah.
Of course, the sand is like the sinking sand,
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching it being ground, and all of a sudden this voice said, "What is its value?" And I said, "The debt against it is almost equal to its value."
Welcome to Carting Truth Podcast, a father-daughter duo focusing on sharing revelations through conversations with the Lord. Let's get started with today's episode. Welcome to Carting Truth Podcast. I'm Lindsay here with my dad Shane, and in true Carting Truth fashion, we had a different episode planned for today. But a couple of nights ago, the Lord took my dad into a night vision that is super important, and we have to share this warning vision with everyone. We're so glad you're here.
Lindsay, I went into a vision. It was really, really bizarre. It has a lot of stuff in it. It was kind of sad in a way, but I got what it was talking about. So I was dreaming, and I don't remember what I was dreaming about, but then I left the dream and went into this vision. And the vision was I was up in outer space looking at the earth, and the earth was turning faster than it normally turns. So it was kind of like time's being sped up. It gave you that feeling of time was being sped up. And there was debris coming off the earth. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever watched people grind opals, or they call it cutting opals, but they grind the opal. Well, the earth was being ground, and there was sand and stuff flying up in the air, but the earth was getting smoother as it was turning. I didn't get to see God's hands, holding onto the earth or what he was grinding it with, but I knew he was grinding it like they do opals.
Okay.
And so I was watching it, and it was getting smoother, and there was a little bit of green and a little bit of blue in it, but there was a lot of sand and what they call potch, which if you ever watch a opal being ground, well, maybe we can throw some footage up there.
Okay.
There's this black and gray stuff that they call potch. Most of the time, if it's a black opal, it's black. But it was being ground, and there was this huge amount of potch and a huge more sand in it, and it was just flying. It was just being, ground down. And, the potch was darkness. It was just dark.
Yeah.
Of course, the sand is like the sinking sand,
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching it being ground, and all of a sudden this voice said, "What is its value?" And I said, "The debt against it is almost equal to its value." And then I watched it grind for some more, and there was, dust going, and the potch was getting smoother and shinier, and the green and the blue was at the top of it, and it was just like it was being ground in the middle, And then this voice coming in, "What is its value?" And I said out again, I said, "The debt is almost equal to its value now." And so it was turning, it was turning, it was turning. And while I was watching it, I had this awful feeling about, gosh, it's almost not worth anything.
That
Yeah.
does something to you when you hear this vision.
Yeah. It was like, it's like the sin debt on the earth had outrode all of the value of the earth. That God was looking at it and was saying, "Hey, it's got so much potch and so much sand in it that the value of the good stuff is almost non-consequential." It was really sad, sobering kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was watching a while, and sure enough, the voice cried out again, "What is its value?" And I said, "It's almost more debt than it is value." And then I came out of the vision. And one of the first things I thought of was Noah. God waited till the earth was to its full corruption. And he still pulled the value out, the 8 persons, Noah and his family.
Right.
But the rest of it was useless. So he, sent the flood to destroy it. It was that kind of feeling. We're almost to the point we have no value, that our sin debt is so huge that he's grinding the potch and the sand away. And when he grinds all that away, most of the earth will be gone. You know, it was that kind of feeling. It was eye opening.
Yeah, when you first called me and told me about this vision, the first thing that popped in my mind was Sodom and Gomorrah. If there are 10 righteous,
Right. Yes.
that's like the first thing that hit me when you told me this vision. It was kind of like a grieving in a little way.
Yeah.
Like, will you spare the city for this?
So it was very sobering that I was feeling in the vision what God was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And he was declaring to me what's its value. But I understood, golly, there ain't much left.
No.
There's not much value left in this thing. Time you grind all this potch and sand away, it's going to be nearly nothing.
Right.
And during that time, you could feel that the potch and sand was more than the gemstone that he was grinding. He was trying to get a gemstone. And now there's a verse that came once I came out of the vision. I woke up. There was the first thing that hit me was about Noah. Then the second thing hit me was this verse. And let's read this verse. It's in the book of Malachi, and we'll read it.
Okay.
And before, it's a conclusion verse. Basically, Israel was saying, "Hey, what's it doing us any good to serve you? You're letting the people who have pride, they're getting the good life."
Right.
The ones that are trying to follow you
Mm-hmm.
are, having it rough, and you're,
going through
we're
tribulation.
calling those prideful, rich people who are just living for themselves blessed, and here we are this way because they were looking at it from a earthly perspective, which we're not. That's what that's the whole thing Jesus was doing, was trying to get us not to look at this life in an earthly perspective. That's what Ecclesiastes is about. Vanity of vanities. This earth was not created in this age of life to be valued above the Lord. Yeah. It was to teach us to value the Lord, not this earth, because he's going to make a new earth and a new heaven. And he was grinding away. He was just grinding away. I didn't get to see his hands or anything, but I was just, it was dust flying. You could see that the potch was getting shinier and shinier because he was, grinding out. He was making the high places low. There's a Bible verse about that. We'll talk about that too. But so when these guys were talking about it, God says, "Hey, here at the end, when the end time comes, I'm going to gather my jewels together, and then you'll be able to discern between the wicked and the righteous." So let's go over and read that verse. It's in the book of Malachi. Okay, so we're in Malachi chapter 3 and verse 17. I'll read 18 also because it comes to the conclusion. "And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in the day when I make up my jewels." And that's what he was doing. He was grinding the earth down into a jewel. He was making the jewels. He was getting rid of all the potch and all the sand by grinding it. And that's what this vision was showing. "And I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him," which is telling us that we're going to be sons of God. And then he says this to their conclusion of their complaint. "Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God and him that serveth him not." Kind of makes me tear up. Think about it.
It does.
The feeling of the hopelessness of God grinding that earth stone down.
You're going to get me going now. I know that's the first thing that hit me when you told me your vision, just like your heart drops because of he's grieving.
And, we're got to that point. That's why we're trying to tell people that some people worry, are worried that I missed the red heifer, and I still don't believe I did.
No.
Nor the October, thing that your husband, and plus we prophesied at the 70th week. I believe that it's grinding down.
And that vision was him showing you like you're still on the right track. I feel like that you're
Yeah,
watching it unfold.
but it was a different feeling.
It was a different, yes,
It wasn't a feeling, yay, Jesus is coming. It was a feeling, oh man, look how much it's going to take, how much grinding it's going to take for the jewel to be made.
right. And you know, like the Father's heart, he doesn't want anyone to perish, and he doesn't want anyone to be separated from him.
No, and he has to make the high places low. So let's go over and look at that verse. He's talking about when he comes back that he's going to make the high places low and exalt the valleys to high. He's going to smooth it out, in other words, which is what was happening in the vision.
Right. Okay.
So here in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 4, I'm going to read 4 and 5 because 5 is a conclusion. So when Christ comes back, he says, every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. And that's exactly what was happening in the dream as he was grinding this earth ball off, you know. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. And I got to see the Lord grind the earth. It was amazing.
Wow.
So our prayer is, and you know, what's what we're talking about this first part of this 70th week is coming is when he'll be gathering his jewels, you know,
Yes.
harvesting his sweet.
Yes.
And it's real important that we start telling our loved ones how close it is. Because I really feel like that when the temple does start being built, that there's going to be a huge evangelistic outreach. I really believe even these small churches will be clogged, inundated, overcome with people coming wanting to find out what's going on, that God's going to put it in their heart.
Right. Right.
And so, you know, of course, a lot of people will still be saying, oh, you know, it's not, they don't mean anything.
Right. A lot of people will be still stay in denial because their eyes are not open to it.
But it was really sad. It was sad that you've seen this huge planet and its value was almost gone.
The one that he created.
Yeah. And I mean, I got a little bit of, I'm sure, his sadness, but, you know, he's so much bigger. I'm sure he's very sad about what was going on. He was trying to find the jewels in it by grinding. Right. I mean, it's just, that's what this time's about. He's going to be looking for the jewels by grinding, by trying to make the opal, by trying, you know, what is the opal? It's a bunch of colors, like the rainbow colors, you know, these beautiful colors. You know, what does it say about God? It says that there's a, you know, a rainbow likened to an emerald.
Right.
There's a stone again. You know, all these stones that are in the city, in the foundations of the city.
Yes.
God's grinding, making his jewels.
Right.
And that's really why this is about. That's what this whole 70 weeks about. It's about grinding all the stuff out of people's lives and finding where the jewels are and where the sand in the potch is. And I'm not an opal cutter, but I used to watch opal cutters a lot just because it was relaxing to watch them grind that stuff.
It's interesting how they get those.
To have such a beautiful stone when they get done.
And he knew that. That's why he gave you that.
Yeah, he knew I knew that. It goes according to our understanding.
Yes, exactly.
But it was very, very sobering to see.
Right.
Watching the earth just being ground to powder.
Right. Yeah, we've done so many episodes and, you know, so many great dreams and visions and prophetic encounters. That's a little less kind of like, but at the end of the day, this is the Father's heart right now. Yeah, he's excited to take his elect, but, you know, he loves everyone and he wants everyone to come to him. But
well, it was emotional vision to watch it happen.
Oh, yeah. It like my heart just sank after you told me that because I got the interpretation of what it was as well, what was happening.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, Sodom and Gomorrah first came, and you know he's had the flood and Sodom and Gomorrah. Like this is not his first rodeo with, you know what I mean?
And you know, when they grind those stones and they're trying to make those jewels, they got to take all the imperfections out.
Right.
And there's like the sand, there's the black potch, there's like this gray potch, there's like these gray lines through it, and they're trying to the cracks that develop. They have to grind all that out. You have to get it all that out because you want the purity of the stone. And if the Lord didn't push for purity, what would heaven be like? It'd be just another play of this.
Right. This
and
would
eventually would corrupt to, like, it's kind of like an apple. You pull out the apple and it's got a bruise in it. What you do, you cut the bruise out. Right. You eat what's good, right? Well, at this probably, I would look, 90-some% of it was potch and sand.
Wow. And
I was just overcome with emotion because I got to feel his grief in this.
Yes.
What's it worth?
Right.
I mean, what a question.
That is like,
what's this worth now? What's all this potch and sand worth? What's all this useless material worth?
I know, his beautiful creation, like what has it become?
Now, there are some things over the years that he showed me that has to happen. When wheat grows up in the seed, there has to be the chaff.
Right.
There's going to be chaff.
Right.
There's going to be things that are discarded. And he made it that way for a purpose because somehow the discarded things helps the wheat.
Right.
And somehow getting the example of what not to do helps you to know what to do. So it was quite the vision. It was really sad to be able to feel the feeling of how sad it was that the earth being so enormous was basically full of sin debt. Now there's another verse about the sin debt. Okay.
Oh.
So let's go look at it. Okay.
Okay.
And it comes down to the point. So we've talked about this before. So when the spiritual part gets so dark, it starts affecting the physical. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what's happening in this passage that we're fixing is that the sin debt has gotten so heavy on the earth, it starts to cause the earth to wobble. And the sun starts going out. And all that stuff starts happening. So there's a lot of analogies to the sin debt. So let's go over and read that passage.
Okay.
I want to read you some verses here that pretty much talk about this. So when this degrading happens because the spiritual darkness starts coming on the earth and then the physical starts reacting to that spiritual darkness, that's what these verses are about. It says, the earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard and shall be removed like a cottage. You mean we talking about the earth will come out of orbit at that time? And the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it. Remember in a vision I said the debt load of sin is almost equal to its value.
Yes.
That's what that's saying. And it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day, which is the day of the Lord, that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, the fallen angels, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. And they shall gather together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison. And after many days shall they be visited. You remember, after the end of the 1,000 years, Satan is released.
Yes.
And then it says this, then the moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed when the Lord of hosts reigns in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and for his ancients gloriously. And we talked about the day of the Lord, that Jesus becomes the sun. That's all fitting into what this vision is saying. I'm grinding it down, and its transgression is almost equal to its value.
Right.
And eventually it will become just like that. When it becomes to the point that its transgression surpasses its value, it'll start to wobble.
Right. We even talked about one of our latest episodes that the evidence of the church falling away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it'll start wobbling,
right,
and then come out of its place. And then it goes on to remind us that when that he which is righteous has come, the sun will be ashamed, will not be shining when he is reigning, because he becomes the sun. He takes the place of the sun. So that's another passage that reiterates what we said about the Jesus taking over, and that the day of the Lord is the actual presence of Jesus shining as the sun on the planet, and the sun that we know is no longer there.
Right.
And the transgression gets so heavy, the debt load
literally
the
throws it off
value.
of balance.
Yeah, the debt load to the value. Very good. Very good. It throws it out of balance.
Right. Well, because we've talked about several times, we know the physical follows the spiritual.
Right. That's a great observation, because if you were to grind something away and you had to grind heavy on one side, it would get out of balance.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it was, that vision was something else, let me tell you.
It is definitely lets us know the seriousness of the times that we're in, and what the Lord is seeing and feeling right now.
Please talk to your loved ones that's not saved and tell them that the time is coming, and that this earth has gotten so heavy in transgression that the Lord's going to have to grind it. It was so sad. So we need to finish with something happy.
I know. Well,
the jewels, right?
We are the
there
jewels.
Will be jewels. There will be jewels.
Yes.
God will perfect us. God will lift us up. He will make his jewels in the fact that we follow him, and that we have put away the ways of the world and become pure by allowing him to grind away. That's what the Spirit does. He goes and he grinds those things, pulls those things out of you.
Prunes us.
Yes.
Get rid of all the junk.
Yes. It's pruning. It's grinding away, getting rid of all the junk so that we'll shine as the jewel. Jewels are hard, enduring things that are beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
That's what he's saying he's going to do for us. He's going to make us that way.
Right.
So hang on, guys.
I know that nothing has been a surprise to the Lord. He knew this was coming the whole time. And in the end, it's going to be glorious. And
what's its value? He kept saying that.
We get a new earth.
Yes.
This one's going.
Well, and if you start thinking about it, we are so connected to the earth that when you make us new, right, he's going to make it new.
Right.
The connections.
Because this one's being ground down to where it's not going to be much left.
Yeah, and he'll make a new one wherein there is no sand and potch.
Exactly.
It'll be a shiny, brilliant sapphire in the space.
Right. And we won't have to deal with this sin and transgression any longer. It will just be pure bliss and joy.
We'll be out of the season of grinding.
Yes.
We'll be out of the season of having to worry about any darkness at all.
Right.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be so good.
It's going to be so good. No more debt. Really, that's what it comes down to, is the debt load. We've got...
and Jesus paid for all that debt.
Yeah. I mean, we got debt on our house, debt on our cars, debt on everything we buy. We have to, we'll put it on short-term payments or long-term payments.
Yes. And that's all going away, and along with the debt of our sin. So if you know someone who hasn't accepted the Lord, it's free of charge, and they can be with us forever. It's his
equity in us, Yes. It's his equity. What's the value of it? The value when Christ comes in is that of a jewel. The value when Christ is not in is that of sand and potch.
Yes, and amen.
Amen.
We want to see you in heaven.
It's a simple prayer to say, Lord, please come into my heart, forgive me for my sins, wash me in your blood, and you will live with him forever.
If you are enjoying the content and would like to support our ministry, you can do so through Venmo or PayPal. Our handle is @CardingTruth, or use our QR code. As always, we want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. What a powerful vision. I know the Lord gave that to my dad 2 nights ago because he wanted this out. He wanted us to be letting you all know what's happening in the spiritual realm and what is coming. So we are so thankful for you all. To our subscribers, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And if you have not subscribed, we would love if you would like, subscribe, and click that bell for more notifications. We also want to connect with you in the comments. Please put any interpretations that you got from that night vision or anything similar that you have seen. Put in the comments. We love to hear from you. We read those and we try to respond to those. Until next time, from Carting Truth, be blessed.